took one up the link together, locked it so that it would no longer fold out, just a regular frame. And I've got some CAD software, so I sat down with it and designed a trailer, basically what you see out there. It was a lengthy process, sort of a learn as you go kind of thing, and make mistakes and start over and hopefully do it right the next time. I call it do, redo, and sometimes you just throw the thing away, and that's do-do. But as I went along, I kind of wrote a manuscript for it. I was planning to publish a book. I may still someday, but I just sort of burned out on it. But you can see it's about 3/4 of an inch thick sitting on the table, and that was just the first pass. And if you take a look at it, you'll see a lot of handwritten changes in it. And I later made I updated it on, I got a computer copy of it that's pretty much fully updated. But, and I think that was about 1.5 years ago when I did that. And I've made changes since then, so it's kind of a non-stop thing. Basically, basically it's a 4x8 trailer. It's about, I believe, 60 inches high on the frame, and I deliberately designed it so that it would fit inside. It would clear the overhead on just about any garage, as long as you take the antennas off. The ground plane for, I've got 9 NMO antenna mounts on the top, and the ground plane is aluminum foil on the underside of the plywood top, continuous aluminum foil. So that takes care of that, although most of the antennas that are on there don't actually need a ground plane. But if you do need it, it's there.
It protects your head from all the RF.
Thank you. I didn't think about that. I'll add that.
Well, you see, that's happened to me.
It may be too late because
it's too late for me. You're the best
Let's see what else. I've got a sealed compartment in the back, the lower part of the back that's open, accessible from the outside, and it keeps gasoline fumes from being able to get inside. And in there, I've got a 1.2 kW 2-stroke generator and 6 fuel containers that are about 2 gallons each, roughly. So it'll run for quite a while in that little generator, especially if you don't run it at full power. I've got 400 watts of solar panels on one side and 2 80 amp batteries, deep cycle batteries on the trailer hitch, and they're 12 volts, but they're in parallel. And let's see, the solar panels put out on a hot day, on a real bright day, maximum roughly about 20 watts, 20 amps, a little more than 20 amps. Which will easily keep the batteries charged all day long, even if you're operating the radios. And then probably run most of the radios through the night until the sun comes back up again. So you got solar panels and a generator to work with. The console, radio console inside is identical to my radio console at home, my operating console at home. I've built 2 identical, installed one in the trailer, and it's designed, you'll see it's got slide-in racks, and the equipment that I normally use at the house, at any given time I can throw it into this trailer and hit the road. So, and I'm looking at exactly the same thing that I see in the house. There's some real complicated wiring inside. I don't know if you got a chance to take a look at it, but I documented it all first and made sure that everything seemed to look like it was going to work right. And it did, surprisingly. I don't know if there's anything else. Any questions?
Thank you very much. It it was very kind of him to bring that all the way out here in the rain and now the dark. I really appreciate it. Well, Hal has something over here that it might be a ray gun. I think maybe he uses it to look into his neighbor's windows or the moon. I don't know. But now we'll turn it over to you, Hal.
Will that fit on your head like the other one?
No, it's not as good as Earl's. Okay, it's a microwave ray gun. So. All right. So what this is something we can use for talking with amateur radio satellites. I don't know how much y'all know about amateur radio satellites, but they're relatively low budget. They're most of them are low Earth orbit, which means they and non-geostationary, which means they go around the Earth. They don't stay in one place like your DirecTV satellites or GPS satellites or something like that. So basically, you can see on this the way it can transverse the sky like that. So you got elevation and turn it this way. And another thing about satellites is that, especially amateur radio satellites, is they go tumbling through space. So you don't know exactly which direction your antennas are going to be pointing. So you got the ability to change your orientation this way. And so what I've got on here, and when you're tracking satellites, there's a lot of things you got to remember. One, you got to kind of predict where they're going to be in the sky. This is an elevation meter right here. And
Inclinometer.
okay, Kyle, thank you. Inclinometer, there we go. That wasn't written on it, I don't think. And back here at the back, I've got a compass. You can get a general idea of what your heading is. This little case right here is empty right now, but what I would put in there is my cell phone is a Pocket PC based, and there's a little application called SAT-CE, which you basically load in the satellite data from, I forget exactly where it gets it, like Celestrak or something like that, and it can predict exactly where the satellite's going to be. It'll tell you what elevation and what heading, and it'll also calculate your frequencies. I don't know if most of you are familiar with it, but when you're working with satellites, you run into the Doppler effect, which means the satellite may say it receives on a certain frequency and transmits on a certain frequency, but that varies depending on whether it's coming towards you, directly overhead, or going away from you. So in this case, this little HT right here, you would program into the memories for a particular satellite so you could scroll up and down through the frequencies to get your best chance at getting in contact through the satellite. And with the HT, I can basically communicate with FM satellites, which basically usually do VHF down and UHF up on FM. There are lots of other satellites that do what they call linear transponders.